Alright, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast. BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. At least once a week on this channel, I'm hoping to do a Q&A session where I read off some of your questions and comments, and we can have a little bit of a discussion. And right now we're going to be talking about the 1981 murder of Marcia King. And, of course, Marcia King was formerly known as the Buckskin Girl. However, in 2018, we had a DNA breakthrough that revealed her identity as Marcia King. Now, the first comment comes to us from Razor Ruski. And this person is actually just calling me out for some of the previous uploads that I did. Specifically, I did 2 uploads on the case of Marcia King after her identity had been revealed. And they were just criticizing me for referring to her as the Buckskin Girl in the titles. And I believe the exact title of the episode was Buckskin Girl Who Murdered Marcia King. And, it's just like the Razor Ruski claims to have known Marcia personally and writes this thing here. This is so sad. Please don't call her the Buckskin Girl. She was a caring person who didn't deserve that. Okay, yeah, I totally see your point, Razor Ruski, but it's like, the only reason I put that name in the title was, I made those uploads about 3 weeks after her identity had been revealed, and not everybody was aware of that yet. I mean, that was still a very recent development, and I just put out the name that had been more connected to the case, and it's almost, like there has been this breakthrough. That's all it was. I was not trying to show any disrespect to anyone. But if we're actually going to discuss some of the things associated with the murder of Marcia King, I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with it if you found your way to this corner of YouTube. But let's look. A girl was found wearing a buckskin poncho on the side of the road in Ohio, on the side of a highway, mind you. She was not wearing any shoes. She had excellent hygiene, excellent grooming standards, and when they conducted an autopsy, there was no signs of sexual assault or even recent sexual activity. So then we just have to ask the question, how did she get there? I mean, that is one of the biggest things that we're trying to do with this case, with the murder of Marcia King. We have been able to identify her, but one of the big things we need to know now is, well then, that's just the first step in trying to solve the murder. Marcia King was murdered, though, by strangulation, and she had been assaulted many times. She had been beaten severely, to say, but I believe the exact cause of death was strangulation. So we're going on to our next comment here from Emanistan. Emanistan writes, "What makes you so certain it was a man? Could have been a woman who was convinced she was flirting with her boyfriend or something like that." Well, going back to a long time ago, I'm thinking about the Chris Benoit murders after there was the incident where the wrestler Chris Benoit allegedly murdered his wife and son and then committed suicide. As far as I know, medical examiners can tell if a person has been strangled by a man or a woman, because with the case of Chris Benoit, they were able to determine not only that a man had done this, but they were actually able to determine the specific manners in which he had strangled his wife and the way that he strangled his son. Medical examiners are very, very precise with this stuff. I mean, granted, this was back in 1981, and the Chris Benoit murders were in 2006. I mean, maybe some new stuff has come out, but with the case of Chris Benoit, they're just able to determine that he strangled his wife while he was kneeling on her back, and he strangled his son with a wrestling choke. They can determine very specific things about strangulation. So it's if there were signs of, there are different signs that are left behind on the body, and I am almost certain that medical examiners can determine if someone has been strangled by a man or by a woman. I mean, I'm not a doctor, though, but there it is. You can take the comment for what you will. So, is it possible that she was strangled by a woman? I don't think we have any sort of major evidence to support that, but everyone's really leaning toward the notion that Marcia King was murdered by a man. Now we're going on to a different upload that I did on the case of Marcia King, kind of the second installment of this. And going to try and look at this from a different angle, because we have one that's coming to us here from CY0031. And she writes something, and you're going to have to listen to me because this is a big comment. Hello, just a thought. Miss King and I are around the same age, and I would like to add something about the popular culture at the time of her death. In the mid-1970s, there was a CB radio interstate trucker thing going on TV shows like CJ and the Bear and movies like Convoy. And you can always Google interstate trucker culture. Some viewed this lifestyle as romantic, riding with the in-state truck, and would explain why she was well-groomed and why she was barefoot. You know, riding in the cab of a truck, it would make sense for a non-driver. And how she was so well-traveled. Also, she was found not far off of an interstate. Just a thought. And I was just like, wow, CY0031. It's like, that is an excellent comment. That is, just, I think, one of the largest clues that we could have, like a good starting point to try and learn more about who murdered Marcia King. Because in the past, I had talked about this on my previous uploads when I was like, I really had the feeling that I was imagining something more like a Scooby-Doo mystery machine kind of a van, like traveling, with perhaps musicians, or just traveling with people, who were just more like drifters. And like definitely something because of Marcia's age, because of how young she was. I just sort of assumed that she would be traveling with like more youthful people and something like that. But it's like, I think I did though mention that there was the possibility that this man that would have attacked her could have been in his kind of late 40s, early 50s. But it's just like, I really just got the image, of a van, kind of like the Scooby-Doo mystery machine. But CY0031 has dropped a very big point. Interstate truckers, I mean, like, even Smokey and the Bandit has, a lot of the interstate trucker CB radio stuff. Granted, yes, I know, I'm very aware that, Burt Reynolds was driving a Trans Am in that movie. I think it's been a while since I've seen that, but there were lots of truckers that they were interacting with and communicating with. So, I think that could be a very big starting point. It would explain, though, why she was going all over the country. And when USA Today did a huge special on her before her identity had been revealed, I believe they were the ones that actually conducted the pollenology. They examined the pollen on her clothes that had come from various parts of North America. Not only that, they got like the chemical soot off of her underwear and were able to determine that she had spent a large amount of time in a major city, most likely in either kind of the New York City area or New England. So it's like, we really had a lot of advancements that went into the case of Marcia King. A lot of people really came together to try and get answers in this. But what we can say is, she has been up and down all across North America. She was even wearing the buckskin poncho, which was most likely purchased somewhere in the American Southwest near the U.S.-Mexico border. Well, CY0031 has brought up a very good possibility, and, it's just something like, what if she had been traveling with a trucker, or like a variety of truckers over the years? I mean, yeah, it's kind of like drifting, but especially if she's traveling with just one trucker, that would explain why she was able to keep up the good standards of hygiene. And that goes back to my original hypothesis with this whole case, that, a man demanded sex, and she refused, so he got very physical with her, and, he strangled her and threw the body on the side of the road. Because I believe she was found not just, a distance from the interstate. I believe she was, like, literally found in the grass on the side of the highway. Now, our next comment comes to us from Carrie Hills. I knew her in junior high school. Her home life wasn't great, and I think she had run away from home, so there is really no telling who she ended up with. Mostly I remember going to her house and putting on makeup. She really was into that when we were 13. It really breaks my heart for her. She was taken away too soon. When I saw the article on Yahoo News, I knew immediately that it was her. Just so sad. Well, as you see there, we've got multiple people commenting who knew Marcia King personally, and Marcia's mother is still alive, and she was able to hear the news that they were able to tell her what happened to her daughter, and I believe what the thing with Marcia's mother was, that she never left the family home, and she never changed the number, just in case that Marcia would call, but they were able to at least give her the news, and that's kind of halfway closure, because her identity has been revealed, but at the same time, we have the giant question of who murdered Marcia King. Well, I mean, thank you, Carrie Hills, for reaching out and sharing your personal story and your personal feelings about Marcia. But it goes to show you there that these cases really do impact real people, and they really are, impacting people's lives who are still aware of this stuff, even nearly 40 years after the fact. It's been decades since the murder of Marcia King, but people have not forgotten her. And that's good. And that's a good thing. It's good to see that there's just so much spirit going on. Well, I hope that one day we will get an answer to who murdered Marcia King, and perhaps CY0031 has a very good comment, like about maybe somehow investigators can start looking at if they have any records about what kind of long-haul truckers would have had people going through the area in Ohio where the body was found. I mean, those records do exist. We've had true crime cases going back to the 1950s and 60s where they've been able to look up, records for all kinds of things, So it's just like, I still think, though, we're probably looking for a man, probably, I don't know why now I'm getting that image again, late 40s, early 50s. If it was a trucker, I mean, that just comes to mind. That's just kind of a gut feeling. And once again, I have to say my hypothesis that he demanded sex from her and she refused, so he got physical with her, and that led to the homicide. Well, what do you think? If you have anything to say at all about the murder of Marcia King, please drop a comment below. I would love to hear from you. Let's keep discussing things. And thank you to everyone who has left comments on the previous uploads. Thank you so much, and hope one day we get some answers. Talk to you soon.